In 2002, the Latino members of the Illinois legislature, as well as other leaders in our community, convened to create an organization with the three main purposes: to develop, through the Illinois Latino Public Policy Institute, a new generation of informed, skilled, and effective Latino leaders who will help shape public policy. Also, to provide college scholarships for outstanding Latino men and women who are pursuing their educational goals. And finally, to empower Latino leaders by increasing understanding of and access to federal, state, and community programs in areas such as employment, immigration, health and human services, education, business, and development of civic leadership. As you will discover today, our annual conference helps to realize all of these three purposes of the ILLCF. Again, I want to say thank you. I know we're going to have a great, great day. We have a lot of surprises, a lot of special guests that are going to be coming through during the course of the day. But more important, I really hope that all the workshops that we have, available today, I hope that everybody takes advantage of them. There's so much information, so many great panelists, so many people that really are committed, to the Latino empowerment, to the fact that we continue to grow as a nation, the population that continues to grow, but more important that we are just doing this for you to make sure that you can network with everyone, network with the people that are experts, seeing a way that we can bring it all back together when it comes to the, to the safety and the empowerment of Latinos. So now I just want to introduce my great co-chairman of the Latino Caucus, someone who, like me, we're just too energized all the time. We never shut it down. My good friend, Representative Cynthia Soto.
Thank you, thank you. I'm excited to be here today, and with all that news that we received yesterday from President Obama, I am truly, truly happy. And I'm sure you are too, of course, as you expressed. So today we are gonna really be putting out some really great workshops. So I know that I'm excited, so I know that you're excited, that's why you're here. Again, like Senator Martinez has mentioned and Mike Gonzalez, I just wanna say thank you for continuing to support this conference. This conference is for you because this is an opportunity for us to network and get to know each other and get input from the voters of Illinois, our friends, our familia. It's really important that we continue to do this because we've been doing some great stuff in Springfield. Let me tell you, we're changing the community when it comes to Latino communities and the whole state. We don't only represent the state, but remember, as Latinos, we need to continue to move forward. We have a lot of issues, as we all know. We need to make sure that when the president is there for us, we need to be there for him. They're going to make his life miserable in Washington. They're going to want to try to introduce a different bill. You know what? They're going to try to break us down. But you know what? We need to be smart. We need to start saying, hey, we need to be presente in Washington, D.C. If it takes organizations and community to come together and raise some money, look, if we have to do potlucks, we'll do it. If we have to sell menudo and pozole and tamales and tacos and whatever, let's do it, and let's go to Springfield and let's be there the way Martin Luther King was when he wanted to make a change. Let's do it for the Latinos. We deserve it. They want to break us down. You know what? Let's show them that they can't do it. We need to go to Springfield, and look, if we have to collect money to rent some buses and get down there, if we have to take our own car, take our families, tenemos que ir y llenar Washington, D.C. with Latinos saying we will not have it. No, si se puede, we are going to move forward. We're going to make sure that we have an immigration reform because we need, like Senator Martinez mentioned, and we hear it every day, there are so many families that are just pulled apart. Could you just imagine that if our children came home and we weren't there? That is terrible. Could you imagine how they feel and the way they'll be scarred for life? Let's do what we need to do. Let's just not talk. Let's do the walk. So please, make sure that whenever you're invited that you're there and you're saying presente because it's very important. We all need this. Look, I am Mexican-American, born in Texas, but let me tell you, my husband's first generation Mexican-American, but his family worked hard to come here like other families to give them a great education, and they have. So again, thank you for being here. We're gonna continue on. I'll make my presentation. Again, I already thank you for being here. I would like to take this opportunity to emphasize that goal of today's conference is not just to address serious critical issues of importance to Latinos, but also to celebrate is also a celebration of creativity, aspirations, and success for our Illinois Latino communities. For example, throughout the day, 10 exceptional Latino photographers who are representative of the artistic creativity in our communities will be displaying their work today. So please, stop by and visit them because they work hard and they also want to express what they do. At noon, we will recognize several people who have done exemplary work on behalf of the Latino community over the years. We will also enjoy our luncheon keynote speaker, Sonia Nazaro. She's the author of The Enriquez Journey. Wonderful, wonderful woman. And we will also honor 25 outstanding college students who will receive the ILLCF College Scholarship. I'm excited, I'm sure they are. Can I hear you clapping? And finally, you are all invited to the reception at the end of the day. I think you've gone, the ones that have been here past 12 years, you know we have a wonderful reception after at the end of the day. So you'll have an opportunity to meet a lot of people and talk to them, network in a casual setting. So it is now a great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Eddie Arruza. I watch her every single day, Channel 11. I'm a fan. A lot of good news. Oh, you do too, okay. So Eddie's a winning journalist now in Chicago's WTTW Channel 11 and highly respected correspondent, reporter, interviewer, segment host of Chicago Tonight. His experience is wide-ranging in terms of television, both Spanish language and English, for whom he has worked, and in terms of his wide expertise and knowledge in terms of politics and current events, the arts, community affairs, and human interest stories. His topic is in the morning. What do we represent? We welcome Eddie Arruza. Eddie, can you come up? All right. And let's give him a warm round of applause. Come on, I can't hear you, louder. Thank you. Thank you.
I hope I can live up to that.
It's all true.
That was quite the introduction. I'm not sure if I can live up to that kind of setup. Thank you so much. And thank you, Representative Soto and Senator Martinez and my friend Mike Gonzalez. And buenos dias to all of you. It's an honor. Gracias. It's a great honor to be here this morning, a great privilege. So thank you to the Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation for inviting me and asking me to speak to you today. In addition to all the fantastic work and the noble objectives of the organization, they have also shown exceptional wisdom at putting me at this point where all of you hopefully have had a lot of coffee and can last through this. But in the television business, we know that you have to keep it lively or they will reach for the remote control. I will keep it lively, but I'm also thankful that there are no remote controls here this morning. I want to begin with a little story that factors a little bit into what I'm going to talk about today. And originally I was going to say it in Spanish, or actually I was going to say it in Cuban, in Cubano. But I figured I'll say it in English to reach a wider audience. So it turns out that there was a Cuban, a Japanese guy, a Mexican, and an American on a ship. Do you know this one? Okay. They're all on the ship. The Cuban pulls out a box of cigars. He lights one, he takes a couple puffs, and he throws them all into the ocean. And he says, "In my country, we have so many of these, we can spare a few." The Japanese guy reaches into his pockets. He pulls out 2 fistfuls of microchips. And he says, "In my country, we have so many of these, we can spare a few." And he throws them all into the ocean. The American turns to the Mexican, and the Mexican says, "Don't even think about it, güey." But now that story might be a little dated given what's happened over the last 24 hours. And I don't want to ruin the excitement in this room, but I just received an AP alert that the GOP is already suing the president over his movement. I'm only the messenger. I'm only the reporter. So the debate has already begun over what the president has done and the executive authority that he has used, and there will be a lot of debate, and I'm sure there will be a lot of firestorm over it in the coming weeks, and certainly when the new Congress takes over in January. But my discussion today is not about immigration policy. Rather, what I want to focus on is the ever-growing number of people whose ancestry or whose birthplace is a country with a majority of Spanish speakers. Now, that's a very elaborate way of saying that we are either Latinos or Hispanics, and still others in our community who don't really identify with either of those terms. So the title of my presentation today is, What Do We Represent? And I chose that as a nod to our elected officials here today who have created ILLCF and this great annual gathering. But I'm really throwing it out to all of us and all of you today. As we surge headlong into the 21st century, who are we? It's a mighty big question that deserves a mighty big analysis, probably by someone with a far above my pay grade, but I would like to at least launch the discussion, which is what I do, and I guess it's within my pay grade. As all of you obviously know, 2 weeks ago we had a midterm election that resulted in what was alternately called a shellacking, an evisceration, or a butt-whooping for the Democrats come January in Congress. Both houses of Congress will have a Republican majority. Many states, including ours, replaced a Democratic governor with a Republican. Many state legislatures, but not ours, much to the relief of the legislators here today, added Republicans to their ranks. There were predictions that it would happen, but I think all across the board there was great surprise at how much the shift was. And that seismic shift was away from what we call blue and towards red. Analysts and pundits have been tripping over themselves to figure out what happened, what was the cause of it all. We even discussed it on Chicago Tonight. There I threw in a promo. And more than one commentator noted, including former President Clinton, that perhaps the Latino vote, or the lack of the Latino vote, contributed to the shift in this country and to the Republican surge. Was there a lot of apathy? Did Latinos not come out in great numbers across the country? Were they disillusioned with President Obama because there was a lack of movement on the immigration reform front before the election? Or was it that Republicans offered a better message across the board that somehow resonated with Latinos this time around, especially when it comes to economic opportunity? Well, the jury is still out on all of that. But the idea, at least, was put forth that the Latino vote matters and does have an impact. Now, I would wager that in this room, even though I'm guessing it's heavily Democratic, that we have some Republicans represented here this morning. And they're proud to announce it. There might be some of you that don't identify either with Republican or Democrat, but feel that you are somewhere in between, or others that might be completely outside the spectrum and on the fringes. Wherever you are on the political range, anyone who has given it some thought knows that we do need to make corrections to our flawed immigration system. But there are many other issues that impact us and the future of the country that we love and call home. And it raises the question that I have used as part of my presentation here this morning. What do we represent? Elected officials here, who do you represent, both personally and professionally? What is our Latino or Hispanic identity and our obligation to it and our obligation to this magnificent country as we grow in number and in stature? And again, I don't pretend to offer the answers as I speak today, especially ones that are nuanced, which is what is needed. My role as a journalist is to ask what I believe are the pertinent and difficult questions, and then act as a facilitator of the conversations that hopefully lead to those answers. Let me explore that idea of identity. How do you identify yourself as far as ethnicity, race, heritage, or even culturally? Do you all remember the 2010 census form? It seems like long ago, but it was only 4 years ago. Question number 8 asks, is person one of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? Your choices were no, yes, Mexican, Mexican-American, or Chicano. The next line was Puerto Rican. The next line was Cuban, and then they had spaces where you can write in your country of origin if you preferred. You could put Argentinian, Colombian, Dominican, and so forth. The term Latino, by the way, finally was put on the census in the year 2000 as a more inclusive way to also include races known as mestizo or mulatto. The question number 9 asks about race. Are you white, black, American Indian, and so on? But there was a time when those two questions were inverted. The one that's now number 9 came first, and number 8 came second. The census first asked about race, and then about Hispanic specifically, or Latino origin. But what the census discovered was that quite a number of Hispanics or Latinos did not answer that second question. When a survey was conducted to find out why, some said that they figured that they answered the race question by just putting black or white. Now, there's also another reason. The census does have a history of, dating back quite a bit, by the way, of using your racial information against you. Most prominently during World War II, when Japanese Americans were rounded up and sent to internment camps. In more recent decades, the fear among immigrants, not just Latinos, but across the board, was deportation. But some respondents who were asked by the census said that they identify only as black or white, not necessarily Mexican or Puerto Rican or Colombian or so forth, as it says on the census form. And when it comes to our community, the terms Latino and Hispanic also have their own geography. Among many US-born Mexican-American communities in Texas and New Mexico, the term Hispanic is preferred and widely used to distinguish not only their heritage, but to also signify that they were born here in the United States. According to a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, now this is going back just a couple of years, in the state of California, the state with the largest Hispanic population, 30% say they prefer Hispanic, 17% say they prefer the term Latino, and many still would prefer to be identified with their country of origin rather than these sweeping terms. In New York and Florida, as two more examples, Latino and Hispanic have different meanings and its usages, and of course the term Hispano is also used. Let me give you just a very quick evolution with my own experience and the term Latino. When I arrived in this country, I was a month shy of 5 years old. I did not know any English, but that was not at all the most jarring part about arriving in America. The big surprise was coming from Cuba and landing in central Ohio in the middle of winter. In that era, as some of you might recall, one got off the airplane on the tarmac, and it was February, and we're walking on the tarmac, and as like a good little Latino boy, I saw snow for the first time, and like a good Cuban little boy, I said, "¿Qué carajo es eso?" Both my Spanish and English improved after that. I started kindergarten about 7 months later, and somewhere along the line, I became fluent in Spanish. At that age, you can absorb it, you're a sponge, and learn it very quickly. So while I was growing up, I was very much aware of my Cuban background, and I do love it, but looking back, I was very much an American. And I don't know what exactly qualifies me as that, but I just felt it. It wasn't until I was applying for college that the question of race came up on the application. And somebody urged me to check Latino or Hispanic, whatever was on that form at that time, because they said it would help me. And I did so, but I was somewhat uneasy about it. And thinking back, I wondered, was I a bad Latino? Was I ashamed of where I came from? The answer, of course, is no, but it took time for me to realize that. Here's another research from a survey from the Pew Research. U.S.-born Hispanics, who now make up 48% of Hispanic adults in this country, express a stronger sense of affinity with other Americans and America than they do immigrant Hispanics. I didn't really need to find that to assuage any guilt that I might have, and as part of my job interviews, I have done a number of interviews with so-called dreamers, the young people that have been brought to this country undocumented by their parents, but they were brought here at a young age. They have grown up here. In many cases, they don't know much, if anything, about their homeland, the place of their birth. They know the language, they know the food, they know the culture, but many of them identify as Americans, and that is at the center of this whole debate over dreamers and what rights and privileges and legal extension should be given to them. Dreamers, like me, have melted into this melting pot of America and have been stitched into our technicolor fabric. But again, it doesn't mean that we are not proud of our heritage. The culture and the language are all still very much a part of me. In fact, the other night, I spent quite a chunk of time on the telephone with my 11-year-old grandniece, who also, by the way, is being raised in Central Ohio. And she loves Cuban food, but she can't speak Spanish. So I spent a nice chunk of time telling her how to say in Spanish, guayaba con queso y galletas, which is what she asked me to bring her for Christmas. I want to talk about one more piece of data as I wrap up, and that's how the United States population will look in terms of race when we hit the midpoint of this century. Some of you may have seen recently a very funny skit on Saturday Night Live involving white folks whooping it up at a party to celebrate their majority status while they still have it. It was very funny. I urge you to look it up if you haven't seen it. And this time around, I'm using Brookings Institute analysis. Over the next 35 years, the so-called white population will decrease in the United States, and by 2050, minorities, including Latinos, blacks, and Asians, will together form the majority, with Hispanics leading in that category. But we get back to the President's executive order on immigration last night. It's inevitable that millions of immigrants in this country, mostly but not exclusively Latino, will get legal residency and perhaps eventually citizenship. They will be like millions of other immigrants that have come to this magnificent country over the last 200 years. There was a time when Europeans flooded into this country and brought the language, the food, and the culture of their homeland. But they, like us, established themselves here, learned the English language, which, unlike Spanish sounds, nothing seems to sound the way it's spelled in English, so it's always very tough to learn. We blend our customs with the new ones that we embrace. And that's why in many households next week you'll find turkey with mole and jalapeno stuffing, or yuca con mojo alongside green bean casserole, or arroz con gandules con un side de cranberry sauce. That's pretty good. Thank you. I'm starting a cooking show also, if you want to tune in. So, though we are gathered today as Latinos, or Hispanics if you prefer, as someone whose ancestry lies in a predominantly Spanish-speaking country, what do we collectively represent? The answer, in part, lies in the theme of this year's Illinois Legislative Latino Caucus Foundation Pride theme. It's an acronym. It stands for purpose, resilience, initiative, determination, and engagement. Those are all very worthy ideals, and I want to end by quoting from President Obama's speech last night. He said, "What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal, that all of us are created equal and all of us have the chance to make of our lives what we will." Thank you so much. It's a privilege to have spoken with you today. Enjoy the conference.